Thank you very much for listening to Architecture Talk. This is Vikram Prakash. I am the host of the show, and our show's producer is Elizabeth Umbenhauer. If you like the show, please do remember to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. And also take a moment and rate us on iTunes. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Hello everyone, this is Vikram Prakash, and you are yet once again listening to Architecture Talk. Season's greetings, it's the end of 2018, and today I have a very special recording for you, something quite unusual, wherein I am talking to my friend Ayad Rahmani about his time as a student of the Catalonian architect Enric Miralles. It's a very informal conversation, it kind of meanders around. And I recorded it spontaneously just while we were sitting around and having some drinks. So the language is a little strong, but I hope you enjoy it. The conversation picks up with him asking me how I got interested in Enric Miralles. And then the second half of the conversation is about Miralles' teaching and working process in studio. I hope you enjoy this, and season's greetings. Here we go.
Yeah, so when did you take interest in Miralles?
You know, I don't really know. He just sort of crept in to my imagination. I mean, I know I heard about him first when I was in Arizona, and my then girlfriend Catherine Spellman had worked with Miralles, and she was very close to him. And she would tell stories about him, but she always connected him to Peter and Alison Smithson, and I sort of thought of him as a late modernist. And she talked about his love for Le Corbusier, and I thought, well, you know, he's one of my cousins because we all love Corbusier.
Yeah.
But I didn't think much about him. But I'd seen pictures of the Igualada Cemetery. And I happened to go to Barcelona I think 4 years ago or something. 4 or 5 years ago, and my very good friend, she in fact knew Benedetta Tagliabue and took me to the office, and I fell in love with the office. And I fell in love with Benedetta, and I thought, this is an amazing office. And then I went to see the Igualada Cemetery, and I thought it was fantastic. But even then, I remember my conversation with Benedetta was all about Corbusier and Chandigarh, and you know, he went to Chandigarh, and Benedetta went with him, and she was telling me stories about how he loved Chandigarh and so on. And so I thought of him as a late modernist, you know, sort of back burner, very, very interested in him, but not fascinated. And then I ran into Alexander McQueen.
Oh, okay.
And my infatuation with Alexander McQueen was instantaneous, you know. I had never heard of the man.
Yeah.
I saw his, Savage Beauty catalog from the Met. And I swear by the end of my turning the pages of the catalog, my fingers were shaking.
Wow. Yeah.
I could not believe the
audacity.
The audacity, yes, and the sort of body audacity of the man. That how could he like shake me up from so far inside.
Right. Yeah. Now I understand what you're saying.
So I cooked up this idea of fashion and architecture simply because I wanted to understand Alexander McQueen. And I kicked around it for a while. I read Mark Wigley, I read, Semper, I read Adolf Loos, I read I read that, and I decided, this is all bullshit, man.
And I saw these fashion exhibitions, and I taught several seminars on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I came around to the realization that what Alexander McQueen did for fashion as a critique of modernism, as the sort of exploding open the potentiality of what should have been postmodern thinking.
Right. Yeah.
The way he ripped it open was way beyond anything in architecture.
Yeah.
It's like a supernova explosion compared to a TNT bomb, you know.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
it's like
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Very well put. Very well put.
So I just got into Alexander McQueen. I've been teaching him for 3 or 4 years, and I'm trying to figure this out. As I got into Alexander McQueen, I suddenly realized that his entire technique of design is collage and dream work.
Mm-hmm.
He just puts things together and he designs from the body.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
And as I was in one day in studio with one student talking about collage, you know, Miralles walked into the room. Miralles.
Miralles, yeah.
And he said, aha, now you remember me.
Yeah.
See?
So in your discussion with the students, you found yourself talking about Miralles?
Miralles, yes. I said, we gotta go get the books on
Oh
Miralles.
my gosh, how did this come into my mouth? How did this come into my mind?
Yeah, no, Miralles walked into the room.
Yeah. And he was...
And I thought, okay, well, this is because this particular student, this particular project, and I tried to contain it.
Mm-hmm.
I really tried to contain it.
Yeah.
And
he's been haunting you since then.
Until haunting me, and you know, the student went on to do her thesis with me, and all on collage.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Collage unleashed. Incredible work.
Yeah.
And then somewhere around there, I knew this is all Miralles. Like the only coefficient
Yeah.
to McQueen in the architecture world is Miralles.
Right. Very interesting. Well, I think you like them for a very good reason, and I think one of those good reasons is that you see in them the ability to challenge themselves and you in a way that our systematized and our bureaucratic world prevents us from doing the same. In our normalized worlds dictate to us, despite our best effort as tenured faculty and everything, to veer away from that narrative. We have to, in order to survive, be held liable to some kind of a linear spine. But when we see people like Miralles and McQueen, we see in them this powerful ability to transgress.
To transgress.
Yeah, in ways that seems to us that to them there was no tomorrow. And in the case of Miralles, he died early. There was
Both of them died early.
Oh, I did not know that about
Yeah,
him.
McQueen died at 40. He committed suicide.
Oh wow, okay. And I think Miralles died around 42.
Yeah, I think he was like 45. 45,
yeah. So both clearly lived life truly in the moment, and not in a kind of a trite way, like, hey, let's do whatever for the moment, but in a way to challenge our bureaucratized, normalized world. They really felt that there's something missing by doing that.
Yeah, but more than that, they did not accept the, like you said, Cartesian reality of the world. More than the bureaucracy, they did not believe that the world is set up in a rational, Cartesian, ordered, Excel spreadsheet world.
Right, right.
and that, but the path to that future had to be ripped open.
Well, the Cartesian world demands that you live a double life. Like, there's an ordered world that you have to abide by to live a civilized, organized world with people, and then there is your inner self, which flows in all sorts of random forward and backward and left, and it has no linear manner.
Yeah.
So the Cartesian world demands that you respect these two worlds, is that divide. And of course Freud talks about it in Civilization and Its Discontent quite eloquently, that that's the world that that's been forced on us.
Yes.
And for people like McQueen and Miralles, and I don't know enough about their background, whether because they came from, let's say, rich families, from wealth, that they were able to let go, but they were fundamentally, consciously or otherwise, not interested in following that narrative. They really wanted their own inner to come out as outer and become an outer self.
Right. And to accept a simple division between good and evil is just untenable. But I'm so jealous of you.
Oh, because I had that interaction with
Because
Miralles?
you were in a studio that Enric Miralles taught.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Maybe I didn't appreciate it back then, but I certainly appreciate it now talking to you. Yeah, I mean, it takes some kind of an agitation, a return to a memory to go, oh my gosh, that was a special moment. Yeah.
So what did he do? Did he walk into studio and shout at everybody, or did he slip into studio, or what was he like in class?
Well, he would arrive from Barcelona, and sometimes he would arrive and he would go straight into studio. So disheveled and still weary from his travels.
Yeah.
But he would merge straight into the discussion, straight from one form of consciousness into another.
Yeah.
Very much part of his personality, as I mentioned earlier, to flow. To not create artificial barriers in his mind with anyone.
What do you mean
experience.
flow? What do you mean flow?
The things flow from wakefulness from sleep to wakefulness, from travel to being on the job. I mean,
it was all just one continuous flow.
Exactly.
One continuous flowing river.
One continuous flowing river, exactly.
He wasn't switching gears or anything.
Never even thought of switching gears.
He was talking as he walked into studio, and he just kept talking.
Exactly. Where most professors or most everybody stops at 5. To him, 5 o'clock was just as good as 5:30 or 4:25. I mean, if he had enough of the day, he would end it, and if he didn't, he would just continue flowing.
Yeah.
Sometimes that flow would end up in bars, and the bars would end up at parties, and the parties would become dance situations, and then it really became part of an ongoing flow of creative consciousness.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and the way he drew, the way he laid out the trace and the paper and the pencils, truly continued in that spirit as well.
What do you mean? How he laid out the papers and the pencils?
Yeah,
how did he lay them out?
I mean, even as the role of trace would open. I mean, as a teacher now, I sometimes stop that trace, but if the table allowed for 10 feet of trace, he would let that 10 feet unroll.
Really?
Yeah. He would proceed from left to right until the entire trace was completely buried in lines.
Really?
And to the point where you couldn't quite tell, left from right, what section, where's the plan. And to us students, we were baffled by that, but only to realize later on that it actually manifested itself into the architecture of his building. His architecture is simultaneously
No, but
planned.
you were baffled, meaning what?
By
Just describe to me an encounter that you remember, him coming to your desk. What happened?
Yeah. Well, one incident was precisely like this, where the trace rolled, and he let it roll all the way to the floor, like until it reached the wall.
Yeah.
So it started on my desk.
Yeah.
However long my desk was, it took over that, and then kept rolling until the roller hit the wall.
Yeah.
And he just let it be, and he just would move the trace as his thought and as his body would kind of interact with it.
So the trace was key, right? You just keep moving the trace.
Exactly. Yeah, the trace was sort of that kind of code, if you will. It ended up looking like a code of lines and scratches.
Code,
yeah, like a kind of a mental code almost.
Yeah.
You know.
I heard there was a secret code.
Almost like a secret code. But one thing
and he would talk in his Catalonian
yes.
English.
This and that and
this and that.
Yeah. You must reach and you must flow. I don't know if you mentioned the word flow, but clearly there was a lot of flow in his gestures, in his body. And what was clear is that his body and its effect on his architecture mattered a lot.
Yeah.
You know, where again most of us, especially today working on a computer, we're detached from the things we draw. But in his case, body and architecture were fundamentally one. I mean, they really flew in and out of each other. So he would reach over and draw a line, and that line you could almost feel was springing back into him, as if there's like a one of those rubber bands, as when you unleash it comes back, and there's a kind of a reciprocal relationship between the lines he would draw and then the way they fed back into his body, only to inform the next series of gestures.
I see.
Yeah.
So he would draw the line.
Yeah, and the line
would push him back.
Push him back. Yeah.
And then he would come back and draw another line.
Yeah.
And then the second line would push him back.
Exactly. Clearly, the line was an embodiment of thought in itself. Was an embodiment of
but the
life.
line had real life.
Life.
It was
Exactly.
alive.
Oh yeah, hugely. Yeah. Now I've heard this said of other architects, maybe like Alvar Aalto, for instance, and but not to this extent. This was fundamentally a unity between biology and architecture. And sometimes he would like rip the trace as if to let it be known that at this moment something special happened.
What do you mean rip the trace?
Like he would dig into it so far that it would cut. Because again, the force of his body was not to the extent he was drawing an architectural line.
Mm-hmm.
He was drawing an embodiment of spirit.
Yeah.
So that it was like a rush, a moment of tremendous.
Was he talking nonstop, or did he just draw?
No, he was talking nonstop, always expressing.
So what was it like? He was one student at a time, or all the students were sort of gathered around at a single crit?
There was a combination of both. As sometimes there was a single crit, sometimes it was a gathering of people, and sometimes he would gather us as a way to sum up the intentions behind the challenge. Because he was only there for 3 days at a time.
Yeah.
He at times he really was clearly interested in getting us to understand or to follow a certain kind of method before he took off to the next step, to the next back to.
How did you describe the challenge of the studio? Like, what was the program? Was not the challenge.
No. First and foremost, understand, feel out, penetrate the site. There's and it's probably well exemplified in the Igualada Cemetery. That intervention stems from the site. I mean, it's as if he sought the site before the site sought him, or the challenge sought him. So,
But he wanted you to sort of design in the same way that he designed with his body, yes?
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Like, how were you supposed to? Were you expected to draw lines like he did, or channel your own body, or what?
Yeah,
Let blood flow on the drawing.
something along those lines. He really he was trying to impart on us the need to feel out our own biology, if you will, to feel out our own the weight of our body as it traverses Earth, as it traverses ground. There's something about the weight of the body that he wanted to bring out and make architecture.
The weight of the body.
Yeah, right. So it's
So leaning into the paper with the weight of your body.
yeah, exactly. Tear it up, yeah. Tear it up and let the tear begin to inform the next series of lines or ideas. In other words, let the relationship or intersection between body and drawing inform your own cognitive process. Again, whereas traditionally we are educated in a line of thinking and then asked to stop and then use that prior knowledge to generate the next step. In his case, that went out the window. There is no prior. There is no history. Thought comes out of your own intervention with the method, your own method, your own intervention with the paper. Let that cycle of drawing and thinking, or let drawing inform your next.
Did he get emotional? Like, did he encourage you to get emotional while drawing?
Oh, he's very emotional. Yes.
What do you mean?
He was incredibly emotional. He would as I mentioned, he would cuss often.
Yeah.
He would. You could say, like an Italian, he would sort of raise his voice as he was drawing, and as he was seeing others draw, he would react in those same manners, but also take pleasure in praise in that same vein as well. So,
but
he
would people chew them out?
Chew them out, chew them out. And sometimes he would even comment on people's fashion.
Yeah.
And,
oh, really?
Yeah, on people's clothing. Why you have a beautiful body? Why insult it like this?
So this was 1988.
Yeah, 87, 88.
87, 88.
I was at
Washington University,
University,
St. Louis.
Yeah. I think when I had it was 87. Yeah, but he was there until 88.
Did the projects of the students in the end sort of look like Miralles projects?
Oh yes, completely. Yeah, very much. Yeah, they were, and that could be good or bad. I don't know. But I cannot say that he wanted us to clone him. He didn't want us to be clones of him. But there was a method, there was an energy, and he was brought in to do his thing. So there was an expectation that whatever we did was to learn from this, and we can change and obviously resist it later on. But those who took him understood that was a method. There was no grid, there was no straight line, and there was no specific entry, no specific program. The program had to change and evolve as the design and the method evolved. And there was it was interesting, we talk about theory, but in his class things were not overthought, and I think by intention. You must not overthink it. When you drew these lines, they were not rational lines.
Right.
They were never couched in any theory.
Yeah.
You may theorize about them later on, but he actually shied away from that. He sought in you the ability to speak from, I guess, the heart, from kind of a source unknown to you, perhaps even
within your body.
In your body, right? So don't overthink it. Don't download a theory that you've heard from Eisman or somebody. Eisman was big at that time, or Renza piano or Aldo Rossi or something like this. You channel what you have done as a way to generate your own rush of words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that interesting relationship between drawing, using that method, and theory. It's not thoughtless.
Mm-hmm.
So where does thought come in?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
And I think that's what I mean by the sort of freedom afforded by the critique of modernism, was to liberate yourself from the straitjacket of the Cartesian order.
Mm-hmm.
But to do that, you had to plumb these other aspects of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And yeah, I haven't really dug into his biography that much, just to see whether that came from a Catalonian culture that endorsed it. I mean, let's say some people align him with Gaudí.
Gaudí, for sure.
They say, well, they come from the same spirit, and the reason why Miralles was able to succeed is because he comes from a culture that treasured this already. I mean, you couldn't do this in Seattle or whatever in the United States. Yeah. Because there's not a mechanism of support for it.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't really studied his biography or his start.
Maybe it is Catalonian. I mean, I don't know.
Same thing with Miro, also from that
certainly,
place. And his imagery or his paintings also non-linear and non-sequential. They seem to have these bubbles of thought, but as a whole, it doesn't add up. So does he come? Is that the culture? Is that something that they teach, or not? I don't know. It could be fascinating.
Well, this will be a good time for us to take a break. We are talking with Ayad Rahmani about his time working with Enric Miralles. Hello everyone, thanks for listening to Architecture Talk. This is a self-supported podcast based on an initial grant from the GAHTC. For more information about GAHTC, please visit gahtc.org. We release a new conversation every other Wednesday. So, if you are enjoying this conversation, please do be sure to visit our website and to check out some of the earlier conversations. From the website, you can also subscribe to this podcast and you can listen to the other episodes. You can also simply directly subscribe to us via Spotify or via the podcast app on your iPhone. And of course, we are available to be heard via any of the other podcasting apps that are available on the internet, such as Stitcher, Overcast, etc. We would also love to hear from you if you have any questions or just some comments, or even have a suggestion for a future episode. You can reach us via the contacts page on architecturetalk.org. Thank you for listening again. And we are back. Thank you for listening to this conversation. We're talking to Ayad Rahmani of Washington State University on Enric Miralles.
You could see it manifest itself in these collage-like patchings of thought processes and drawing processes. So he would jump around from one thought to another, and without separating the drawings, without saying, okay, I'm going to start a new drawing. He would sort of apply and layer these drawings one on top of the other.
I'm wondering if that's a technique to try and allow the DNA of the body and the psyche to have more power in the realm of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you're wondering, you're thinking perhaps he did have control over this in a sort of a back and forth between.
It has to be. I mean, consciousness cannot be rescinded at any time.
Yeah.
If he's talking, consciousness is working.
Yeah.
It's sort of a constant struggle.
Yeah. And people like this don't like to talk much. They
But you told me you talk non-stop.
And in terms of like presentations, lectures, and formal presentations, we invite you to come and talk. I think he much preferred on the spot.
Did he do lectures at WashU when
Yeah.
he was there? Public lectures?
Mm-hmm. He did, I think, one or two. Yeah, during his time, because he was there for a couple of years. And
So each time you probably did one.
yeah, one.
Usually
Yeah,
you were required to do
exactly,
one.
exactly.
So what were those lectures like?
Yeah, they were very jumpy. You from one topic to the other, and some kind of a thought would bubble up in his head, and he would stop and bring that in as a way to say, that was, if you can't quite understand me, maybe this is something you can understand. He would bring in painters, Picasso or Miro, into the topic, and try to use that example as a way to elaborate on what he's trying to
So
say.
he spoke in collages.
He spoke in collages, yeah.
He thought in collages, he spoke in collages,
Yeah.
he lived in collages,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and his body collaged with his brain.
oh, completely, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so it's a way of thinking, of collaging the DNA body with the sort of thinking body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Earlier we were describing it as a battle.
right.
Are collages battles?
Collages are, I mean, is a battle again a conscious thing? You make battle when you are
A battle
consciously bringing two
opposite.
disparate, opposite forces to battle against each other.
Conflict, yeah.
Yeah. But in this case, I don't know if it was ever conscious. It was a way to cope. There's just too much that converged on the brain at any one point that was too good to let go, and it was much better just sort of let it all out. And you can see it in his lines. I mean, if you look at his lines,
Where?
if you I mean, anything from this gesture, the way something begins to slip out, almost like a bunch of sleeves, that things never sort of end,
like
or
sleeves,
sleeves that
kind of slip out.
slip out. Exactly. It's things have an extension of themselves out to the next step. Clearly, in the Agualada, I mean, there's the lines would determine their own flow.
The building becomes the privileged place where we ponder on the origin of our path.
Mm.
So he's already walking
Yeah.
and runs
Ponder
into
the
this
origins.
opening,
Yeah.
and that's called a building. And once you're at the building, you can ponder where you came from,
Mm-hmm. Right.
but you can't ponder it
Beforehand. Yeah.
Beforehand.
Yeah.
So that's
You don't.
history.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's history.
Yeah.
That's history.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The building becomes the privileged place where we ponder on the origin of our path.
Mm-hmm.
Ponder.
Under. Yeah.
You don't get it. Now, the difference from postmodernism is they extract the essence of the history of the nature of the place of the bullshit of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Postmodernism wanted to impose on you the need to contend with history. That history was important even if it had to be manufactured for you. Somehow you had to come to the table with a history.
So why is this revolutionary?
I mean
That becomes an end.
but that's precisely that quote you just said. Where the moment begs that you revise or question or ponder your own origins. What have you understood about movement in the first place? Why should movement be regulated? I mean, the stairs is such a regulated entity, pop, 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 and then he's prying open our preconceived notions of what things are and how we move. What do we understand by circulation? What do we understand by time?
So you are reading this as a question mark, as a questioning mark, like say,
Question, yeah.
like in the Zen gardens, the path will be going. Suddenly they'll turn it to the left and take it.
Yeah.
simply to make you aware.
Yeah.
Think about what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Right, exactly. Again, I go back to Rilke's torso. I challenge you. Can you change your life? Can you match in any way this beauty that you're seeing, even though it's lopped off at the head?
But in Rilke's torso, a perfection is put up.
Right.
There is no perfection put up here. Here simply it's critique.
Yeah, but it is a challenge to your your own understanding of yourself, space, movement, time.
It's simply asking the question,
Yeah,
not setting up an ideal.
that's right. Exactly. So
So
this
it's
is
asking of a
contested
question.
territory.
It's contestation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's carnivalesque contestation
Yeah.
of the normative.
You know, what is it that exists between man and man, person and person? What exists between the gaze and the sacrilegious gaze? What determines a profane gaze from a sacred one?
Miralles talks about finding the project, what we call the project. I'm trying to find discovering inside a line, finding the precise details of an idea in its pulsations.
Mm.
The precise details of an idea.
That's what I'm talking. That's the DNA. That's something something
No, that's
pulsing.
the twitch.
Yeah, the blood flow in your body.
Follow it like a path, and that more elementary geometry is formed. If you follow it like a path, that more elementary geometry will be formed.
Mm-hmm.
One that follows somebody's impulses. To find inside what we call the project.
Exactly, and these scratchings are all formations. They're all to the extent of trying to find the project, find your own self in the project. How the project is really an embodiment of the person who made it.
And it has its own embodiment as well.
I mean, in both there's also the Baroque. McQueen and Miralles. There's a return to the Baroque, the flamboyant.
Sure, yeah, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. And the desire to have you dance in place, both as a dance of pleasure, of euphoria, but also a way to understand or find your own self. I mean, seeing this and walking around it, you are.
Did you go there?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, this was during the time of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's part of his work.
This is in the description he said. This is where you describe it. Yeah. The construction mechanism is identical to its drawing on paper. I have no idea what he means.
He might mean that you construct on site. You do not rely on construction drawings. Construction drawings are predetermined. So once you make them, you kill the pulse. So we have a general idea as to what we want. These drawings that he's made. These are construction drawings. These are not in preparation to layers of determination afterwards. They are the end result.
Yeah.
So obviously you have to have a sympathetic set of people working with you. But if that's the case, you go out there and you use chalk, you use line, you use.
So the logic of construction is embedded in the drawing.
Exactly. Absolutely. I mean,
It's
it
not
is.
like this is the vision I want, now figure out how to construct it.
Oh, that's antithetical to him, completely. Yeah, and that's why he treasures these kinds of projects, because they are determinations. They are not determined, but they are sort of the preface to his more concrete work later on.
Concrete, you mean concrete as material?
No, as more stable, more anchored in the ground, if you will. Some of his work
Value
is
of construction is present in the, this is also in McQueen.
Yeah.
He uses this idea that construction is a part of the construction of the object is
Mhm.
the constructing of the process is.
It cannot be overdetermined.
Hmm?
It cannot be a separate moment in the process of turning the drawing into material reality. Yeah.
It cannot be extra determined.
Right. The accidental is very important as well. Yeah. One of his lines that now then becomes refined and bifurcated, and now it embodies something, whatever that is. It becomes an embodiment of space, and the function is oftentimes up to you. It's you fill it. It's now you come in like a leak.
So he's the anti-Rem Koolhaas, right? Because Rem Koolhaas makes this fetish out of program.
Yeah.
Think of the Seattle Library.
Right. Although I'm sure there are some similarity. I mean, a good part of REM is tongue-in-cheek. There's a joke being played on program. It's not really program as in SOM program or Perkins and Will kind of program. I mean, these people take seriously the containment of program. Somebody gives you 750 square feet, and it has very strict parameters and an economy. You could tell
Rem's playing a joke.
Yeah, he's playing a joke.
Yeah.
He's playing a joke on program. I mean, that's part of his brilliance.
Right.
And you're not quite sure when does the joke end. I don't think it ever ends, but there's at least a sense that it might end. Like, oh, you're playing a joke for 10%, but the rest is actually serious architecture. I don't think so. I mean, it's the entire thing is a joke. That he's playing on humanity and on us.
Is Miralles playing jokes?
No, I don't think so. No. I think Miralles, yeah, was all in. He was not playing
jokes.
No jokes. No.
Did he laugh ever?
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Yeah.
No, I mean with you in studio.
Yeah. No, I think he did. Yeah.
Did he not have big belly laughs?
I don't remember having, but he would, with his accent and his gestures, it's like he used the word crazy quite a bit. He invoked that word in a very serious way. Crazy in that sense of bringing out your inside out. You're so constipated. We're so closed. We're closeted in all sorts of way. And this was a way to sort of dissect your own self and let it spill out.
But did he fall on the floor laughing anytime?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get the sense that he was
No.
He didn't love jokes.
No, he was not a joker.
Okay, so we got the gesture.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
the
like
knife.
It's
Yeah.
like a rapier, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah. It's just
stick it in.
You stick it in, right? Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
It's. And if I think there might be a couple of YouTube of him drawing, and when you see him draw, it's the lines. They never turn. They just kind of go on, and they're oftentimes looking like chicken scratches. And they're both a kind of mental externalization. It's a way to come to terms with his own psyche and his own limitations. It's kind of a way to cut your psyche up so much that it knows no boundaries anymore.
Cut your psyche up so much?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean your psyche is afraid. It's insecure. It's trying to please others. It's trying to follow rules. It's you know, it's trying to obey. It's trying to become part of a system.
Yeah.
And how do you open that up? Well, I think that these lines were both lines on paper looking like chicken scratches or knife markings. At the outset of No Country for Old Men, you remember that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a scene in which this amazing character, kind of a psychopath killer, enters a station. Long story short, he ends up strangling the guy, and the guy's wearing an old, not an old, but a cowboy boot with the strips or straps at the at the bottom, and he's struggling for his life.
Yeah.
And in so doing, he makes markings very much like Miralles' markings on the floor, and I think the floor is maybe wood or something.
Yeah.
But the camera, after the struggle, after he passes away, comes over and scans that image, and it's a gorgeous image of just lines going, and so it's a manifestation of one's struggle for life. It's a struggle for psyche. You could interpret it as some kind of a mental struggle and biological struggle, just to cope, just to stay alive. And you could say the same thing about when Miralles was doing that.
Right.
He was struggling. He was coming to terms with his own psyche, with our collective psyche, if you will. This is a way for him to, just like postmodernism was trying to impose, he was trying to react back in a forceful way. How do we pry open, that closure? And some of these scratchings, they're beautiful because they show, they externalize. They show the externalization of that mental psychoses, if you will.
I mean, so in a more, that's kind of thing that's also being aspired to when Trisha Brown does her dance series.
Yeah.
You've seen her drawings made while dancing,
No.
trying to dance and making scratches.
Oh
on the
yes,
paper.
yes. I have seen those. Yeah.
But they are much more controlled, of course.
Yeah, those you might say creative expressions, maybe perhaps out of accidental moves, which is very beautiful and worthwhile, of course. But then there's this mental struggle.
No, it's a mental body struggle. I mean, when you're struggling to stay alive.
Yeah, exactly.
It's, there's a sort of a fusion between mind and body.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful, exactly. And it has to be, at least in the case of the movie, unself-conscious. This person is not making art, but inevitably he generates art out of that struggle.
I mean, Jackson Pollock tries to do something similar.
Yeah, right. Jackson Pollock is but you could also say, I mean, there is the eye, the calculated eye. There's some things happening before you, and the eye realizes that it's beautiful without knowing why.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, these are
there is some lack of control because once the paint is dropping, it's dropping.
Yeah.
Correct? In Jackson Pollock.
Yeah. Right.
He's not drawing.
Yeah.
On the paper.
Right. I mean, this brings up some really interesting notions of time, beginnings and endings. I mean, for Pollock, if I understand it right, is that dropping begins to talk to you, kind of a cyclical feedback loops between the drop in the eye and the mind and the next drop over. You begin to create a cycle of closed set of beautiful analyses of what is right, what is beautiful, what is not beautiful, and you continue in that manner.
Right. I mean, obviously that's the problem because ideally you want to kill yourself
Yeah.
to do this.
Right.
But that's not practical, is it?
Exactly. Exactly. And then
So you have to sort of pretend to die
Right. Yeah.
to design.
That's also very beautiful. I mean, again, with Miralles, you could say there is an attempt here to die, of course, metaphorically, that you need to kill your own conscious or subconscious.
Yeah, not metaphorically, sort of
Yeah.
as closely as you can actually.
Yeah, sort of rid yourself from it completely.
Yeah, that's why, petit mort in French, orgasm is small death.
Yeah. So yeah, what does that say about time? Are you, when you're doing that, are you ridding yourself from the time that came before you, all these influences, all these method that's came before you that somehow determines what we should do today? Again, his method, there's schematic design, then there's design development, and then there's construction drawings and construction, and he's really prying open all that.
I'm sure he doesn't give a shit about all that.
Right, yeah. Where does one end and one...
Way more primal than
Exactly.
any of that kind of crap.
Right, exactly. So it's quite unbelievable. But that ramp, I would love for you to go see it sometime.
Look.
We don't know. We're not supposed to know where the one ends.
Did he make you guys do collages?
No. Mm-mm.
No collaging?
No collaging. No, I don't remember collaging. He may have done it with the other studios, but not in my own. It was, but he did have us use scissors and cut up drawings.
He had you cut up drawings?
Yeah.
Like meaning what?
So you'd be drawing, and then the drawing is a flat piece of paper with pencil on it, the lines and all that, and then at what point does it become three-dimensional?
Yeah.
Because it's a manifestation of your brain work or lack thereof, sort of on paper. And so he would take the scissors, and almost like a when you turn the drawing into a clothes.
Like
Yeah,
seamstress.
seamstresses,
Not
right?
seamstresses, yeah, seamstresses.
Yeah.
But tailors, yeah.
Yeah, so he would take that line and take that line, and then all of a sudden bend that over and begin to make sort of like the Agualada cemetery. The floors unfold
Yes.
and become a ripple.
Yeah.
What you saw as flat, what you saw as just lines on paper, now begins to manifest itself into some kind of 3D intervention. Yeah. And sometimes the cuts were only this thick, so he had to be careful, and then turn that into some kind of like a pole or a prop that was going to serve a way for entering the site. How do you enter the site at that point? What is that? Whether it's an underground feature or a bridge, or so the drawing really became a source for new imagination and new intervention.
So this is lost today, right? I mean, if you don't begin with the drawing in that way, and these large drawings, and the trace, can you do McQueen without all that? Not McQueen, Miralles.
Of course, much of it is on the computer, so that doesn't happen as well. You really have to take stock in the ephemeral. I think what a good part of what he was doing was touching on the things that can be wasted or just. It's a source of experimentation. Nothing is sacred here.
All right, let's call it an end over there. Thank you for being on Architecture Talk, Ayad, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on Enric Miralles. Thank you for listening to Architecture Talk. This is Vikram Prakash, your host, and our producer is the one and only Sammy Prouty, a graduate student of architecture here at the University of Washington in Seattle. I hope you all enjoyed our conversation, and if you did, please do take a moment to subscribe and to rate us on iTunes. See you next time. Take care. Goodbye.